reaching out to China, to Korea, to Japan, and trying to open up markets there. I mean, like Dangal did so well, it actually earned more money in China than in India. A Bollywood film earning more in China than in India. Wow, which just tells you how much how much potential there is to be explored if we do it consistently.
Indian cinema is over 100 years old. Today, India is also the world's fastest growing OTT market.
I think the rise of Bollywood means the rise of the India story. And I do not think there are better ambassadors to Indian society than Indian films have been for decades. And I really hope that contribution continues to grow, because it will, because internet has allowed us that global exposure, and it's a two-way street.
One World Trade Center that is the one where the impact.
The cause of India's freedom for many years.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
America is a constant work in progress.
India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. One trillion species. 7.8 billion humans. 1.9 million species extinct. One planet. Where are we heading? What should we do? Can the leaders save us? COP26 Summit, direct from Glasgow, October 31st to November 12th, only on WION. World is one. WION. Now available on Spotify and Google Podcast.
Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks, and in this bulletin, we'll get you a roundup of stories developing around the world. First up, the day's top headlines. China is expanding its nuclear arsenal much more rapidly than anticipated. A Pentagon report says Beijing could have 1,000 nuclear warheads by the year 2030. The Pentagon publishes its investigation of the US drone strike in Kabul in August that killed 10 innocent Afghan civilians, including 7 children. It describes the incident as a tragic mistake, insisting that no laws were violated. Britain becomes the first country to approve the use of an antiviral pill to treat patients suffering from mild to moderate COVID-19. The antiviral, called molnupiravir, works by decreasing the ability of a virus to replicate, thereby slowing down the disease. The World Health Organization warns that the rising number of cases of COVID-19 in Europe is of grave concern, and the region could see another 500,000 deaths by early next year. South Africa's governing African National Congress is nursing a fresh political headache today after its worst election results, as local polls show support for the legacy party of former President Nelson Mandela dipping below 50% for the first time. At least 19 countries, including major investors the United States and Canada, pledge to end all unabated overseas fossil fuel projects by the end of next year. And as India marks Diwali, the festival of lights, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrates with the soldiers in Jammu and Kashmir, keeping up his practice of celebrating the festival with army personnel. Iran and the United States have taken their conflict to the high seas. There have been contrasting accounts from both sides about an incident involving an oil tanker in the Sea of Oman. Iran's Revolutionary Guards say the US Navy tried to seize the vessel. They said that they stopped an effort by the US to take away Iran's own oil. The Pentagon is rejecting those claims by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Officials said that in reality, Iranian forces seized a Vietnamese-flagged oil tanker last month, and US naval forces were simply monitoring the situation. State television in Iran aired dramatic footage showing a red tanker surrounded by about 10 Iranian speedboats. It also included a recording of what the broadcaster said was the encounter between Iranian and US forces. This comes as Iran has repeatedly warned the United States about its military activities in the Persian Gulf. Tehran says that its naval forces have increased patrols also to secure the passage of Iranian ships and combat fuel smuggling. The IRGC statement came on the eve of the anniversary of the takeover of the US Embassy in Tehran on November the 4th, 1979. Revolutionary students supporting the Ayatollah Khomeini seized the facility in the Iranian capital and held more than 50 American citizens hostage for 444 days. Tensions have risen between Tehran and Washington amid stalled talks on reviving Iran's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. The nuclear talks are set to resume on November the 29th in Vienna. It'll be the 7th round of talks, and they are set to get underway after a 5-month gap.
We've made clear that Iran's continued nuclear escalations are unconstructive, that they are inconsistent with the stated goal that Iran has put forward of seeking to return to mutual compliance with the JCPOA. We've also been very clear that Iran's nuclear provocations and escalations won't provide Iran with any additional negotiating leverage when talks resume.
Now, here in Washington, the Pentagon is warning that China is expanding its nuclear arsenal much more rapidly than anticipated, narrowing the gap with the United States. The assessment comes in the U.S. Defense Department's annual report on China to the United States Congress. The report says China is aiming to modernize, diversify and expand its nuclear forces over the next decade. It is doing so by expanding the number of land, sea and air-based nuclear delivery platforms at its disposal. China is also supporting this expansion by constructing fast breeder reactors and reprocessing facilities to increase its capacity to produce and separate plutonium. The report says the accelerating pace of the nuclear expansion may enable Beijing to have up to 700 deliverable nuclear warheads by the year 2027. Beijing is suspected of planning to want at least 1,000 warheads by the end of the decade, exceeding the pace and scale the United States projected only last year. 1 year ago, a Pentagon report said the country had about 200 deliverable warheads and would double that by 2030. The report also mentions the possibility that China may already have established a nascent nuclear triad, with the development of a nuclear-capable air-launched ballistic missile and improvement of its ground and sea-based capabilities. China was quick to hit back and respond to the Pentagon report, labelling it full of prejudice. Beijing said Washington is hyping up talk of a nuclear threat. Even with the accelerated nuclear expansion, China's growing arsenal is still dwarfed by the United States and Russia. They own the lion's share of the world's nuclear weapons. If we look at the numbers, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, as of April this year, the Russian stockpile consisted of 6,555 nuclear warheads. The US had a stockpile of 5,500 warheads. China comes in a distant third with about 350 warheads. France comes in fourth place with 290. The UK, Pakistan and India follow with 225, 165 and 156 nuclear warheads respectively. Beijing has resisted efforts to join arms control talks, arguing that its nuclear arsenal is far smaller than those of the world's two major nuclear powers. At the same time, it has pursued a broad military modernization program that has raised concerns about its intentions. China is expanding its air, space and sea forces with the aim of projecting its power globally. The Communist Party has publicly stated that it wants the military to become a global power by the year 2050. And that growing military capability was demonstrated recently after reports emerged that China had tested a new hypersonic glide weapon capable of orbiting the Earth that could eventually carry a nuclear payload. The Pentagon has declared China its principal security concern for the future. The rivalry has increased concerns about a possible clash between the US and China, especially over Taiwan, which China claims as its territory. By 2027, the Pentagon report says China aims to have the capabilities to counter the US military in the Indo-Pacific region and compel Taiwan's leadership to the negotiating table on Beijing's terms. However, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff here, General Mark Milley, says that China is unlikely to try to seize Taiwan militarily in the next couple of years, even as its military expands its capabilities. The Galapagos Islands off the Pacific coast of Ecuador teem with marine life, including endangered species. But overfishing by China's fleet is now threatening the islands. Our broadcast partner, The Voice of America, brings us this report.
Walter Borbor lives on the Galapagos Island. A fourth-generation fisherman, he sees his livelihood threatened by hundreds of Chinese ships casting for squid near Ecuador's Galapagos Marine Reserve.
They catch tons of fish on those vessels. Large ships carry countless species, and this is large-scale exploitation. Fishing with this many ships is going to cause an irreparable impact. Some endangered species will come extinct.
Scientists studying evolution and the impacts of climate change value the isolated Galapagos Islands. Home to some 3,500 species, the islands almost 1,000 miles from South America's Pacific coast are a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. But just beyond the boundaries of the reserve, Chinese fishing fleets are waiting.
As no one knows how much they catch, as there are no observers on board, there is no independent external audit, there is no data. Nobody knows what impact this has, or whether it should be restricted, or if it isn't, what will happen.
China accounts for more than a third of global fish consumption. With waters overfished in Asia and demand rising, China's government-subsidized fleet, the world's largest, is now fishing off Latin America, Africa, and even Hawaii.
They have already finished with their resources in their seas, and they are cleaning out the rest of the ocean. They are in international waters, and they are legally fishing.
Last year, from July 13 to August 13, researchers spotted nearly 300 Chinese vessels near the Galapagos Reserve, going after squid, essential food for fur seals and scallop hammerhead sharks. Both are endangered species endemic to the Galapagos. In 2017, authorities caught a Chinese vessel inside the reserve. More than 7,500 death sharks filled its hull. Most were hammerheads, but there were endangered silky, treasure, and mako sharks too, all valued for Chinese medicinal and culinary use. China's ambassador to Ecuador, Chen Guoyu, told VOA that his government is acting to protect endangered species.
The Chinese government strictly prohibits all boats from fishing for protected and endangered marine species, and it has zero-tolerance policy for undeclared illegal operations by fishing boats.
Ecuador has expressed its concern about the fleet, but believes international organizations should handle this issue.
Ecuador has worked on this topic and raised its concern. We have to work within and with the instruments that international law and current international agencies grant us.
Borbor worries the scale of Chinese fishing will affect the ocean food chain and the supply of fish resources.
On the mainland, for the past 2 decades, there haven't been enough fish close to shore for the artisanal fishers to catch. I don't want the same thing to happen here in 2 decades.
Jaime Moreno, VOA News, Galapagos Islands.
Now let's shift our attention to North Korea. Kim Jong-un will soon celebrate the 10th anniversary of his succession, and the North Korean dictator has some special plans for the occasion. Photographs of Kim Jong-un's ancestors are being removed. The state's mouthpieces have given him a new title, the Great Leader. And Kim has coined a new doctrine, Kim Jong-unism, to glorify his reign. What's this all about? Our next report brings you the details.
Kim Jong-un rose to power 10 years ago. When he took over from his father, many observers expressed doubts. They thought he wouldn't survive. But a decade after his rise, Kim Jong-un is putting his stamp of authority on North Korea. Reports say official buildings in Pyongyang are getting a makeover. Portraits of Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, and his grandfather, Kim Il-sung, have been removed. A new doctrine is being pushed. It is called Kim Jong-unism. What does that mean? No one except Kim Jong-un can answer that question. Experts offer some insights. They say Kim Jong-unism is not an ideology. It is nothing more than a label used to glorify the North Korean dictator. Kim Jong-un's ancestors used similar tactics to reaffirm their grip on power. Kim Il-sung had coined Kim Il-sungism. When he picked Kim Jong-il as his successor, a new term was coined: Kim Il-sungism, Kim Jong-ilism, a reference to both the leaders. Now Kim Jong-un has come up with his own doctrine, just before the 10th anniversary of his succession. North Korean mouthpieces now call Kim the Great Leader. This term was earlier reserved for Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. With these moves, Kim Jong-un is sending a signal. He wants to break away from the shadow of his ancestors. It's not reflecting in his practices, though. North Korea still remains a global pariah, thanks to its nuclear program. Pyongyang is relentlessly conducting missile tests, even as millions of North Koreans are starving. The Kim regime tolerates no dissent. The United Nations has accused it of atrocities like torture, rape, forced abortions, and forced disappearances. Kim Jong-un might use different labels to justify his brutality, but in the eyes of the world, he still remains a dictator. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
New York City's iconic World Trade Center site has been lit up to showcase a spectacular digital mural celebrating Diwali. A crypto exchange firm with a presence in both the US and India partnered with the South Asian Engagement Forum for the event, combining the American tradition of viewing fireworks with the Indian Festival of Lights. A fireworks display is also set to take place over the Hudson River. The three-day Diwali celebration will wrap up tonight. WION's correspondent in New York, Susan Tehrani, sent us this report.
It's called the All-American Diwali, and it's taking place here at the iconic World Trade Center in New York City. The three-day Diwali celebration is taking place from November 2nd to the 4th by showcasing a spectacular digital mural behind me on the platform of the World Trade Center. Also, fireworks are expected on the Hudson River later on tonight on the second day, and it is the first time in history that fireworks to this extent is happening on New York's Hudson River. Apart from 4th of July celebrations, these kind of fireworks are usually reserved for America's Independence Day. However, organizers say that they wanted to bring the celebrations of Diwali together with 4th of July celebrations, an American tradition, to bring these two democracies closer together. With 2.7 million Indians in the United States, American traditions are being combined with Indian festivities. Also, one of the reasons organizers say the World Trade Center was picked as a spot was to pay respect and tribute to the New York City Police Department and the Fire Department on the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION, World is One.
And that's all we have on today's WION live broadcast from Washington. I'm Simon Marks. A very happy Diwali to all those celebrating the Festival of Lights around the world. For more global news and updates, stay tuned to WION, World is One.
Arab.
One World Trade Center, that is the one where the impact.
The cause of India's freedom for many years.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.
America is a constant work in progress.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
It's code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening. Wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. Extreme climate events warn of impending doom. Is the world heading towards a climate catastrophe? Watch WION's Climate Tracker, weekdays at 12 p.m. GMT, 5:30 p.m. IST.
Joe Biden, now the 46th president of the United States, has a full plate in front of him.
Afghanistan has been the heart of American military power.
In a clear warning to China, India's military has now taken control of the country for 1 year.
It says that it's likely to miss by around.
What was happening inside the virology lab in Wuhan?
One ship was able to freeze global trade.
We want love, we want peace, we want equality!
There are a traditional recipe, and it's really very delicious.
We have again broken records: carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide.
This is the opportunity for the world to try to stop climate change getting out of control.
need constructive dialogue. It's time, it's time, it's time.
This is doable. The bottom line is, folks, that as we stand here today, we believe we can make enormous progress in Glasgow.
COP26 Summit, direct from Glasgow. October 31st to November 12th, only on WION. World is One. Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views, and analysis. WIOnews.com. World is One.
We have again broken records: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide.
This is the opportunity for the world to try to stop climate change getting out of control.
We need constructive dialogue. It's time, it's time, it's time.
This is doable. The bottom line is, folks, that as we stand here today, we believe we can make enormous progress in Glasgow.
COP26 Summit, direct from Glasgow. October 31st to November 12th, only on WION. World is One.
Hello and welcome to WION Live, broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and as ever we've got lots to get through in this bulletin from all over the world. First up, the headlines. Global CO2 emissions, mainly caused by burning fossil fuels, are set to rebound in 2021 to levels seen before the COVID pandemic. This according to an assessment that serves as a reality check to the decarbonisation pledges at the COP26 Climate Summit. China is expanding its nuclear arsenal much more quickly than anticipated. A Pentagon report says Beijing could have 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. The rising number of cases of COVID-19 in Europe is of grave concern, and the region could see another 500,000 deaths by early next year. That is a warning from the World Health Organization. We also have some breaking news on COVID in just the last few moments. UK regulators have approved Merck's molnupiravir, which is the first oral antiviral for treating COVID-19. As I say, breaking news just in the last few minutes. Israel's coalition government passes its first budget in over 3 years after a marathon Knesset debate. As India marks Diwali, the festival of lights, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrates with soldiers in Jammu and Kashmir keeping up with his practice of marking the festival with army personnel.
It's called the All-American Diwali, and it's taking place here at the iconic World Trade Center in New York City.
And from New York to India, and very much so here in London, the world celebrates Diwali. A Pentagon investigation into the last US drone strike conducted in Kabul has concluded. The strike killed 10 people in Kabul, including innocent children. The Pentagon says it was a tragic mistake, but did not violate any laws. The report admits to errors in its execution due to factors like confirmation bias and communication breakdown. The review by Air Force Lieutenant General Sami did not recommend any disciplinary action.
The investigation found no violation of law, including the law of war. Did find execution errors confirmed by combined with confirmation bias and communication breakdowns that regrettably led to civilian casualties. The
review stressed the context surrounding the strike was important. On the 26th of August, a suicide bombing claimed hundreds of lives. US forces were being flooded with information about threats to troops and civilians at the Kabul airport. The report concludes that US forces genuinely believed the car they were following for 8 hours was an imminent threat of an ISIS terrorist planning another attack.
Individuals involved in the strike interviewed during this investigation truly believed at the time that they were targeting an imminent threat to U.S. forces on H-Kaya. The intended target of the strike, the vehicle, the white Corolla, its contents and occupant, were genuinely assessed at the time to be a threat to U.S. forces.
Sami's report, endorsed by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, also made several recommendations for improvements, including that more be done to prevent what military officials call confirmation bias. That's the idea that troops making the strike decision were too quick to conclude that what they were seeing aligned with the intelligence available. Sami also recommended the military improve its procedures to ensure that children and other innocent civilians are not present before launching a time-sensitive strike. Next to Ethiopia, where rebel forces say they will advance on the capital city. The Ethiopian conflict has killed thousands of people, with over 400,000 facing famine in the nation. It's been 1 year since the start of the war, which is still escalating.
We will bury the enemy with our blood and bones. Those were the words of Ethiopia's Nobel Peace Prize winning President Abiy Ahmed. He was speaking in Addis Ababa on Wednesday as he marked 1 year since war broke out in the northern Tigray region, and amid fears the conflict could be heading for the capital.
The pit which is dug will be very deep. It will be where the enemy is buried, not where Ethiopia disintegrates.
Ethiopia declared a state of emergency on Monday. That order prompted by claims from the Tigray People's Liberation Front that its forces had captured several towns in recent days and might march on the capital. The TPLF's forward position is around 235 miles to the north. Authorities in Addis have told residents to register their weapons and prepare to defend their neighbourhoods. The 6-month state of emergency enables the government to order citizens into military service. Engineer Merke Shifro was among Addis residents who said they were ready to heed the call.
I am young. I will participate in the war, in whatever young people should do. I am planning to head to the front line.
Authorities are also allowed, with a court order, to detain for the duration of the state of the emergency anyone suspected of collaborating with terrorist groups. The TPLF was designated as such in May. After the state of emergency was declared, there were scattered reports of ethnic Tigrayans being arrested in the capital. Addis Ababa police and a government spokesperson did not respond to phone calls requesting comment. The TPLF led Ethiopia's ruling coalition for nearly 30 years, until Abiy came to power. Relations then soured, escalating into the conflict that has killed thousands, forced more than 2 million from their homes, and left 400,000 people in Tigray facing famine. As fighting has spread beyond Tigray, it has destabilised what was considered a stable Western ally in the volatile Horn of Africa region. On Wednesday, neighbouring Kenya said its national police had heightened security and vigilance along the border. The African Union said its chair was following the situation with deep concern and urged parties to enter into dialogue.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson finds himself in the middle of a controversy. A couple of controversies, actually. In the last few minutes, we've heard that his government is U-turning on a controversial standards issue with regards to policing the behaviour of MPs. But another controversy he's facing is that as he hosts the ongoing COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, Boris Johnson reportedly flew back to an exclusive private members' men-only club, the Garrick in the west of London, and it's understood he flew back by private jet. A spokesperson says the decision to fly was taken because of so-called time constraints, but members of the opposition parties have accused Boris Johnson of staggering hypocrisy. He is